Today, you want to talk to us about agile product ownership and about the 4 quadrants. And I think that's maybe a good place to start to kind of detail what you mean by that, and we can kind of go a little deeper from there.
Sure. I talk a lot about what good product ownership looks like in my coaching and my training, in just moseying around the Agile community. There's product ownership is still something people struggle with. Can I get by with half of a product owner for a team? So there's all this negotiation around how much, what is the bandwidth, what does the job look like, etc. And a few years ago, probably around the second edition of my book, I started talking about the 4 quadrants. And the 4 quadrants are product management, project management, business analysis, and leadership. And I'm not stuck, but there's like 4 areas that I think good product owners need to focus on. Product management is the traditional externally facing stuff. When you think of a product, most organizations think of a product manager, they're thinking of business cases, they might be thinking of customer liaison, stakeholder management, executive stakeholder management, things like that. And that's true, so that's part of the role. But it's not the only part. Project management is the one I get a lot of people snicker when I say that, because they think I'm saying, well, we want a traditional project manager, and I get a lot of heat for that quadrant. But I do think that a good product owner manages milestones, for example. They have to understand release sort of plans and release planning and sprint planning. They have to understand the velocity of the team or capacity of team or teams, etc. And they have to sort of manage timelines, if you will, in the way a project manager would have done it historically. It's not the same. It's not the same as a traditional project manager. Business analysis is the easiest one for folks to grapple with because it's like story writing.
Yeah.
I'll use like user story writing, acceptance criteria, definition of done, definition of ready, backlog refinement. Those are activities in that quadrant. And then the leadership quadrant is a little softer. I've always felt, and I know there's self-directed teams. I know that's the essence of Agile, but at the same time, I do think leadership has its place. So I've always thought of the Scrum Master and the product owner as being a little L leaders, and they pair on a team basis. I want them to partner and pair, and I think they're providing little L leadership to their team. Let's talk about the product owner. For example, vision, mission and vision, and what customer problems are we trying to solve? I think providing that motivation and that vision and leading that way is part of the role. So that's sort of the 4 quadrants. I think it's customized per product owner, per team, per area, so it's very context based. One of the drivers for the quadrants was I found a lot of product owners were starving areas. And so, for example, you might have a product owner who's very strong in the BA quadrant, but I wanted to emphasize to them that you don't just feed the team in the BA quadrant. You have to provide some leadership. You have to provide some product management and project management. So you can't do your job unless you're balancing across. It's a balancing act, and making sure that your skills are balanced across the quadrants. The other thing is, if you have any gaps, skill gaps, then go find a partner. Like you don't have to be great at all 4 quadrants, but you do have to be self-aware to say, oh, I need to find a product management partner to help me there because I have some gaps up there that I'm not filling. Maybe it's your boss. Maybe it's another product owner. Maybe it's a product manager. Yeah. Did that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. And this is something I wonder, as you talk about like that product ownership role, and we have the Scrum Master. I'm guessing and you brought up the term pairing, and I really like that. As you look at some of those skill gaps, though, I'm guessing you probably want to think about where the Scrum Master might be stronger in some areas and be able to help you, or as you mentioned, maybe you get a mentor in a certain area because we have those gaps. But I think this is a good way to look at the totality of what's needed in product ownership. But why don't you step back and describe kind of as you mentioned, the vision. What's the vision of a good product owner? What are some of the telltale signs? I'm sure you're working with teams and work with a lot of product owners.
Yeah, I mean, I think the quadrants feed into that. I talk about like the prime directive of a product owner is to feed their team well and feed their team across. So you have to, in order to feed the team, it's not just giving them work, but it's like prepare an environment for them to be successful, for example. So the quadrants come into that. I was at the Agile conference last week, the 2019 Agile conference in DC.
Yeah.
I want to go back to something you said that I think is important. And someone challenged me in the audience. I was doing this workshop. So I was doing the 4 quadrants.
Yeah.
And we were breaking out in between each one, and attendees were sort of they were defining their quadrant based on their context for each. They were filling in the responsibilities. And this one young lady said, well, what about the Scrum Master? The Scrum Master can really do a lot of this stuff. What are you saying?
Yeah.
And I'm saying, then let them do that. If they have strengths in those areas or passion in those areas, then partner with them. It's not while the product owner is one voice, it's not product ownership by committee. It's product, you own it. You need to be self-aware of your strengths, weaknesses, and of the quadrants, and ask for help.